The story begins with Donnie at the police station, reporting that a woman has been stalking him. She shows up at his workplace, his home, and constantly sends him emails. The police officer doesn't think the woman is dangerous, but Donnie is concerned because she has been stalking him for 6 months, and he believes she needs help. A flashback reveals Donnie working as a bartender in London when he first met his stalker. He saw her and felt sorry for her. He offered her a cup of tea, and when she said she couldn't afford it, he gave it to her for free. She introduced herself as Martha and said she was a lawyer who owned a law firm, which made Donnie wonder why she couldn't afford a cup of tea. Donnie explains that he moved to London to become a comedian, but it didn't work out. Now, he lives rent-free with his ex-girlfriend's mother. Martha visits him every day with different makeup and hairstyles, staying through his entire shift and talking non-stop about people in her life. Donnie admits that he enjoyed her attention because she was the only one who noticed him. He would compliment her sometimes but never gave her his phone number. Then, he started getting around 80 emails a day from her, full of simple spelling mistakes. When she invited him for a picnic on her birthday, he refused because he thought picnics were for couples. Instead, they went for coffee. She thought it was a date and asked if he was serious about her. He said yes, but only as a friend. Curious about who she was and what she saw in him, he followed her to her apartment, which he found very messy. Martha came to one of his stand-up shows and was the only person who laughed at his jokes. Her laughter was infectious, inspiring him to be funnier, and he had a great performance that night. She later confessed that she loved him and gently touched his face. Afterward, she sent him a friend request on Facebook. When he checked her Facebook wall, he found photos of her edited next to various political figures. He even saw a picture of himself with the caption, "I met someone today, my very own baby reindeer to have and to hold." He Googled her and found out she really was actually a lawyer. After her graduation, she was fired from her job for inappropriate behavior with her boss. Then she filed a fake report against him claiming that he abused his disabled child. She then started stalking him by hanging around her boss's house. She even attacked his mother on the street and went to jail for it. He realized that a convicted stalker was stalking him but still added her as a friend on Facebook. He couldn't believe he did that and tried to unfriend her many times, but always stopped himself. Donnie thought Martha was unwell and misunderstood. She started commenting on all his photos, even the old ones. She then said their date was romantic and asked if they were officially a couple, wondering if he was seeing someone else. Donnie ignored her and logged off. Donnie went on a date with Terry, and they talked about their lives. He explains that he met Terry on a trans dating website, where he used the name Tony and disguised himself. He didn't expect to fall in love, but Terry was smart, strong, and funny. Donnie was worried about running into someone he knew from the pub or his comedy group and didn't want anyone to know he was dating a trans woman, so he chose a dim cocktail bar on the edge of town for their dates. He always intended to tell her about his real name, but the more he felt for her, the more he kept putting it off. Sometime later, Martha went to Donnie's workplace and asked who he was texting and if it was Keely. Donnie says Keely is just an old friend. That night, he couldn't sleep, worried Martha might find out about Terry, because he promised himself to keep them apart. He decided to tell Terry everything. He showed Terry Martha's texts, and she thought Martha was clearly unwell. Terry asked why Martha called him Donnie. He says she calls her all sort of names. Donnie promised to put a stop to it, and Terry said if he didn't, she would visit Martha herself. When Donnie arrived late at the pub, Martha called out to him. He served her a Coke and made her pay for it, but she started crying. Donnie comforted her and mentioned their age difference, saying he would want kids one day. Martha replied that the world only takes from people before leaving. That night, she flooded his inbox with inappropriate emails trying to prove her fertility. After that, she would show up at the pub every morning and follow Donnie around, talking non-stop about their future together. She even had tickets to his semi-final competition. Donnie asked the pub manager, Greg, to bar Martha, but Greg said no. He and Gino thought Donnie needed her for his shows as his last show was hit because of her, and banning someone needed proof. Donnie shows them his phone to see Martha's emails and use them as evidence to bar her. Gino sends an inappropriate email to Martha from Donnie's phone as a joke. This upsets Donnie very much. He then calls Jason to see if he could change the date of his semi-final, and Jason agrees. Later, he went to the club to meet Terry, and they danced together. Terry looked up Martha online and discovered she had been to jail before. She suspected that Donnie was keeping Martha around because of what she offered him. When he returned, he found Martha waiting for him. She is upset with his behavior, saying she never took no for an answer, but she might make concessions for him. She claimed that men who didn't fancy her were blind. She asked him to stop pushing her away and offered to help him deal with the man who hurt him. Donnie decided to leave, but she followed him. Then, she pushed him against the wall and touches him. Feeling shaken after the encounter on the street, Donnie went back home feeling scared. He blocked Martha on Facebook and took a break from working at the pub. But he still felt her touch lingering for days afterward. He wondered why he didn't react during the incident. His flatmate Liz, who is also his ex-girlfriend's mom, checks on him and comforts him. Later, he went to Terry's place to apologize and tell her the truth about his name and job. She listened briefly, then kicked him out. On the bus, he put his real name and occupation on his dating profile. Liz then introduced him to her cooking group, where Martha, going by the name Sheila, happened to be. Donnie explains that when he first came to London, he moved in with his then-girlfriend Keely and Liz while they tried to start a life together. Eventually, Keely moved out on her own, but Donnie stayed. After a few days, Liz's son dies in an abseiling accident, and Liz starts seeing Donnie as her own. She even gave him her late son's jacket, and he started wearing it after refusing at first. When Keely found out he planned to stay, she agreed as long as he didn't cause any trouble for Liz. One night, Martha stayed over and talked with Liz. Donnie wanted her to leave, but Liz invited Martha to stay. Donnie then told Martha to leave and stay away, but she refused until he threatened to call the police. When he went to his room, he found a picture of Martha, which made him panic because she knew where he lived. The next day, he decided to talk to her, but she didn't show up at the pub. Instead, she waited for him at the bus stop in front of his house. Keely visited and asked Donnie to deal with the Martha situation. Martha kept contacting Keely on Facebook and wouldn't leave her alone. Keely promised to tell her mom if Martha kept bothering her. Martha continued to stay in front of Donnie's house. Every day, he would leave early in the morning, and she would still be at the bus stop, sometimes even late at night. She never approached him or came back to the house. When the weather turned cold, she would stare at the house for hours, so Donnie checked on her and drove her home. That night, he made her a cup of tea and stayed with her for a while. He pleaded with her to give him space and told her he was ending their relationship. He asked her to respect their breakup boundaries and then left. The next day, she didn't show up at his bus stop, so he felt relieved. Then, he went to his semi-final competition. Terry came to see the show because she wanted closure, hoping to see him fail in front of a big audience. However, he managed to make the crowd laugh. But Martha was there, and she started singing and announced to everyone that she was Donnie's ex. Donnie corrected her, saying she was his stalker. Angered, Martha began shouting and demanded an apology. She accused him of sneaking around her house at night and peeping through her windows. Security escorted her out, and Donnie's comedy gig turned into a disaster. Terry, who is a therapist, wanted to meet Martha. Terry and Donnie quickly left when Martha came looking for him and went straight to a pub. They had a drink together and talked. Terry noticed that Donnie changed his profile on the website and decided to give him a chance. Martha showed up at the pub and called Terry names. She revealed that she was on a date with Donnie. Martha pushed Terry and started attacking her, insulting her. Donnie stepped in to intervene. He lost his temper and threatened to harm her if she didn't stay away. Then, he checked on Terry, who had a bloody face. Donnie says it took him 6 months to report Martha, and when the police officer asks him why he didn't report her earlier, it all came back to him. 5 years ago, when he came to the Edinburgh Festival to join the street performers but was surprised to find his stage in the main bar. He started doing his comedy gig there, but nobody seemed interested. One day, the bartender gave him a VIP pass that someone dropped. Donnie used it to get into the Luna bar that evening, where he networked and met Darian, the writer of his favorite show, Cottonmouth. The next day, Darian attended his comedy gig and gave him his card. He offered to help take Donnie's comedy show to the next level. Darian became involved in Donnie's show for the next few weeks, giving him advice, and his shows improved. Every night, They would go out together, discussing the show, and Darian introduced him to drugs and encouraged him to try them. Darian suggested that Donnie perform in London. Later, Darian went back to London early, and Donnie didn't hear from him for the rest of the festival. Months later, Donnie went to acting school in Oxford but felt unhappy with his life and missed Darian's confidence-boosting presence during his acting classes. One day, Donnie got a call from Darian, who asked him to write with him. Donnie went to Darian's apartment and showed him the script he had written. They took a lot of drugs, and Donnie ended up vomiting in the cat's bowl. Darian started touching him, and Donnie asked him to stop. Darian gave him some almond milk and promised to take it slower next time. The next day, Darian told Donnie that a channel was interested in the story he wrote and was willing to support him. After Donnie moved to London with Keely, he started taking drugs almost every weekend at Darian's house. He was promised his own show by the age of 30. Donnie often passed out in Darian's company, finding him lying next to him with his hands and mouth in various places on his body. Later, Darian would give him harsh feedback on his scripts and make him rewrite them overnight. Donnie couldn't spend Keely's birthday with her because he had to go to Darian's house to work on his career. Keely warned him that Darian was using him, but Donnie ignored her and left anyway. That night, Donnie and Darian took a different drug. Donnie started to panic and tried to leave, but Darian gave him a drink and began touching him. When Donnie woke up the next day, he took a shower and realized he had been sexually abused. He stayed in the apartment for days afterward before eventually going home to Keely and apologizing for leaving abruptly. Donnie wonders if Darian ever truly believed in him, or if the whole situation was planned to ruin his life. After Keely moved out, Donnie fell apart. He struggled with sexual confusion, unsure if his feelings were because of Darian or if they were already inside him. He even dreamed of killing Darian. Months later, he realized his feelings were changing. He started dating people of all genders to understand himself better. The first time he was raped, he lost interest in love and felt incapable of it until he met Terry. She was everything he wanted, but whenever she touched him, he felt angry and ashamed that he was falling for her. Donnie admits he might not feel this way if Darian hadn't hurt him. When Martha showed up, all the confusion he felt disappeared. She saw him the way he wanted to be seen. When it came to reporting her to the police, he struggled with the irony of reporting her but not Darian. Martha was ill, and he felt she couldn't help it, whereas Darian was manipulative. The police officer asked Donnie to bring proper evidence of Martha's harassment, but he felt stuck. Martha was banned after attacking Terry, but she continued to harass Donnie. Everywhere he went, she would be there. Martha even attacked Keely and threw soda in her face. Keely's mother, Liz, asked Donnie to move out. He moved to Kilburn with two guys from his drama school days. He liked the house, but they threw parties there at night. Donnie blamed Martha for his situation. He started spending more time at Terry's flat. The incident with Martha brought them closer. However, despite trying, he couldn't be intimate with her. After failed attempts, he noticed a change in her. She spent days in bed. Eventually, she explained she was upset because he made her feel bad, echoing Martha's insults. She wondered what he was doing to fix things. She knew he hadn't told the police about Martha assaulting her because he felt ashamed. Donnie reassured her she didn't look like a man, but Terry felt he always treated her like one. Donnie showed the police officer the emails, but they didn't see them as credible threats to charge Martha. Donnie urged the officer to search for Martha's name in the system. The officer did and took Donnie to see his supervisor, Detective Joanne. She said Martha was a serious woman who had stalked a policeman before. Joanne asked Donnie to make a timeline of everything that had happened so far. Meanwhile, they would warn Martha about her behavior. Donnie explains that the police showing up at Martha's door made her stop contacting him suddenly. Weeks later, he started to panic because the emails allowed him to understand her emotions. He was terrified she might harm herself. He wondered if he missed her drama and attention. He even started fantasizing about her, even though he wasn't attracted to her. It became an obsession for him. He visited her and spent the night, which enabled him to be intimate with Terry again, but he felt confused and abused again afterward. Donnie admits to the police that he hasn't made a timeline yet. Detective Joanne spoke to Martha, who surprisingly cooperated. She even attended 2 of their social adjustment courses. Donnie wondered if Martha passed on any information or if she was upset. Joanne assured him that if Martha contacted him again, they'd involve the CPS, likely resulting in Donnie getting a restraining order. Terry thought Donnie wanted a big showdown with Martha, but he felt Martha wasn't as angry as expected since she restrained herself. Donnie ignored a call from his mom but got a frantic voicemail. Martha had called his parents, claiming he was hospitalized. Donnie was shocked she involved his parents. When he visited them, he found his dad threatening Martha on the phone, saying he'd cut off her legs if she ever called again. Martha got his dad's phone number from his receptionist and spent the next day calling his colleagues, accusing him of being a pedophile and claiming he had abused her as a child. Donnie's mom urged him to quit his job to stay safe. Then, Martha called his dad, but Donnie picks up the phone and hangs up quickly. Donnie and his mom spoke to the police, but the officer explained that Martha was harassing his parents, which was a separate case from his. Donnie spent a week in Scotland, waiting for the police to act, while Martha kept calling. Eventually, he decided to confront her. He told her to leave his family alone and even promised to meet her later that night. He asked her to write down what she wanted to do to him in an email, planning to use it as evidence. After she sent the email, Donnie forwarded it to Detective Joanne at the police station. Joanne later asked him about his encounter with Martha. She knew he had asked her to send a sexually threatening email because Martha had recorded all their interactions. Joanne warned him that his behavior might be seen as entrapment. Martha didn't want to take action against him, so Joanne suggested he apologize to her and let the police handle it. Donnie was surprised that the police were treating them equally. He realized Martha knew what she was doing because she had done it before and was experienced. Donnie was worried Martha would start stalking Terry, so Donnie advised her to take a break from social media. But Terry refused, believing Martha was mentally ill. Donnie tries to make things work with her, but his own issues and shame stop him from loving her properly. Terry realizes this and breaks up with him. The next day, Martha went to his pub, but Donnie refused to let her sit. She ignored him, served herself water, and started harassing him in front of a customer, revealing his personal life. The customer joined in mocking Donnie. Donnie asked him to Google for Martha, revealing her as a serial stalker who tormented a deaf child. Martha hit him with the glass, so Donnie punched her in the face, and then she was escorted out. The man asks what was that about, and Donnie tells him he gave her a cup of tea. He regretted ever giving her that free cup of tea. The pub's manager refused to let Donnie call the police because it would cause trouble with the landlord. They might be accused of negligence and lose their jobs. In the final of the comedy competition, Donnie did his gig, but the audience didn't find his jokes funny. He started talking to them about his struggles and mistakes. He remembered his encounter with Darian and how he did everything Darian asked to become famous. He admitted he was raped and lost his self-respect in the process. The audience was shocked to hear his confession. He also told them about Martha and how he let her into his life because of his low confidence. He knew she was dangerous, but he went along with it for attention because she flattered him. Then he talked about Terry and how he couldn't love her. He realized he ruined their relationship because he hated himself more than he loved her. He tearfully admitted he loved her very much. Donnie ended by saying he looks forward to winning the competition. A random audience member recorded it and uploaded the video to YouTube, where it went viral. Weeks later, Donnie found himself at the center of a media storm. Martha stopped emailing him, and Donnie started getting many work opportunities, like podcasts, radio shows, and bigger gigs with better crowds. His career took off unexpectedly. Donnie was happy because it showed his abuser that he couldn't break him. However, Martha called him and threatened to tell his parents about Darian's abuse. Donnie avoided her for a few days and then visited his parents before she could. During the visit, he confessed that he wasn't straight anymore and wasn't sure of his sexual orientation. Tearfully, he told them he needed their support on his journey. He admitted he was raped but didn't tell them because he felt embarrassed and didn't want them to think less of him. His dad shared that he also experienced something similar growing up. His parents hugged him as they cried together. Donnie slept well and woke up feeling lighter, like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He spent a few days in Scotland with his phone turned off, enjoying the peace and quiet. When he returned and checked his phone, he found several voicemail messages from Martha. He went to the police station, where an officer advised him unofficially to keep his number, and wait for Martha to say something incriminating. Over the next few months, Donnie listened to Martha's voicemails, noting moments where she made threats. He became obsessed, ignoring work calls and canceling gigs and interviews. He found himself relating to her again, as they shared common insecurities and fears for the future. Her voicemails distracted him from his losses, like seeing Terry move on with someone else. Donnie admitted he hesitated to report Martha out of empathy or fascination, as he wanted to keep her in his life. However, he eventually reported her when she threatened to harm his family. Martha got arrested the next day and was charged with stalking and harassment. Donnie attended her plea hearing, where she pleaded guilty. She cried, calling him my little reindeer, before being taken away. That was the last time Donnie saw her. Martha was sentenced to 9 months in prison with a 5-year restraining order. Donnie deleted the police timeline and wrote that he felt sorry for her. Keely visited him because she was worried about him. He hardly left his room, and on the wall, she noticed Martha's belongings, trying to understand the situation. Donnie organized Martha's voicemails into folders, capturing her different emotions. He hadn't listened to many of them. He told Keely he had given up on comedy because he realized it wasn't for him. Keely suggested he move back to her mom's place to sort himself out. She admitted his video upset her. Donnie agrees to move back and she hugs him. Liz welcomed him home and left him something in the cupboard: her late son's yellow jacket and the script he wrote for Darian with his notes. Donnie went to see Darian, and they talked. Darian saw his video and thought it was brave. He invited Donnie to work on a new version of Cottonmouth, promising it would be different from last time. Donnie accepted the offer and left. Outside, he started breathing heavily. He listened to Martha's podcast and smiled as she complimented him, confessing that she fancied him. Then, he went to a pub and ordered a drink. He clicked on the not listened to folder, where Martha explained the baby reindeer thing. She had a cuddly toy when she was young, and it meant a lot to her. She still had it, and it was the only good thing about her childhood. She'd hug it when her parents fought, which was often. Donnie looked like that reindeer, with the same nose and eyes. The reindeer meant so much to her, and she cried as she said that Donnie meant so much to her. Donnie started crying, and the bartender checked up on him. Donnie realized he left his wallet at home, so the guy offered him the drink for free, and the season ends there.